February 9, 2004 would be the last time anyone had contact with Maura Murray. That evening, she turns in her homework and emails her professor that she was going to be out of school for a week due to a death in the family, which we find out later that that's not true. She made a strange internet search for Vermont and New Hampshire, and she called a condo owner in Bartlett, New Hampshire to inquire about reservations that she never booked. She decided to withdraw $280 from her bank account, which is pretty much almost everything out of her bank account. She goes to a liquor store and buys $40 worth of liquor and recycles 79 cans to redeem them for $3.95. She then heads north on Route 112 in her 1996 black Saturn. No one knows where she's going. Maura did not tell a soul. She was spotted just after 7:30 that night in a small town called Haverhill, New Hampshire, about 2 hours north of her university campus. A woman heard a loud bang just outside her door, so she calls 911. That would be the first 911 call of the night. Her neighbor, Butch Atwood, who was a bus driver and was coming home from shift, notices Maura right outside his house. He stops to ask if she needs any help. Maura declines and says that she already called AAA, but he knew that wasn't true, as there was no cell service in the area at the time. So he goes inside and calls 911 for help. This was at about 7:43 p.m. When police arrived, the 1996 black Saturn sedan was locked, abandoned, the keys were gone, and Maura was nowhere to be found. Welcome to Crime Thread. I'm Paola, and every week we unravel the threads behind real criminal cases and unsolved mysteries. Maura was a 21-year-old nursing student who attended University of Massachusetts Amherst. She was a junior this year. Winter break had just ended. She had all the energy to get back into the swing of college dorm life. Maura was a fierce competitor and broke a number of long-distance running records in high school. I feel there has to be a strong love for the sport of running. Running is something that someone just doesn't force you into. You gotta really enjoy it. Fred was always there for his kids and supported them through all their races. He always made sure they were okay to do the next one. Julie loved having Maura as a long-distance running partner. I can assume that it can get lonely on a long run, and having someone that can keep up with your pace is so crucial. Julie and Maura had a very strong sister relationship. They would stay up for hours just talking about life. Currently, Julie has a podcast called Media Pressure, where she gives Maura a voice. Julie goes in depth about her sister's disappearance. I will link it down below, so please check it out once this is over. As investigators searched for answers, the case only became more complicated. Maura's car was found facing the opposite direction of traffic with a rag in her tailpipe. Fred suggested the rag in the tailpipe as a means of a temporary fix. Since her black Saturn was very old, a lot of black smoke would come out of it. So the rag was a way for it to not happen when she was driving it. But once the car was back in the Murray's possession, Fred was able to turn on the car using a spare key. But this begs the question, why didn't Maura find the nearest gas station if the car was still drivable? Found inside the car, in the front seat, was a sky blue cooler. In the back, there was an open wine box, a suitcase, black gloves, a stuffed monkey, a diamond necklace, 2 textbooks, the accident forms she was going to give Fred Murray, and a broken Chrysler car part. No one knows whose car part this is or why it's even in the Saturn in the first place. All the things Maura packed just don't make sense for someone that's ready to up and leave. Side note on the accident form, because I believe this has a bit to do with her mental health at the time. On Saturday, February 7th, 2 days before her disappearance, Fred came down to see Maura so they can go car shopping. Maura didn't find one, so she dropped her dad off at his motel room. She borrows her dad's car, and she goes to a friend's dorm party at around 10:30 p.m. A few hours later, this is now 2:30, so it would be Sunday, February 8th. Maura left the party, and she was driving back down to her dad's motel room. At 3:30 a.m., Maura struck a guardrail on Massachusetts Route 9, causing thousands of dollars in damages. The responding officer wrote an accident report, but there was no documentation for a field sobriety test. Maura was taken to her dad's motel room. They were able to call the insurance company and have the car insurance pay for the damages, but the insurance company was going to need those accident forms to file a claim. So that is why those accident forms were actually in Maura's car that evening. She was going to go drop them off. I can imagine that having that kind of guilt of crashing your dad's car could have a toll on a person. Julie describes her sister as a person that didn't want to cause any financial burden to her parents. And Fred wasn't the dad to yell at her, get angry, but he was actually the kind that just wanted to make sure she was safe. There were more things found inside Maura's vehicle. Inside the 1996 Saturn was a handwritten note with a name and a phone number. There was also a dark mark on the A-pillar. Think of the bar that separates the windshield and the driver's side window. That is where the mark was found. And Julie believes this might be a marker for foul play, maybe. There were a few things missing from this vehicle. The most impressionable was her rear view mirror. It was a type that you had to screw on, so if you were trying to remove it, you would really have to pry it off with force. Maura's backpack, keys, and cell phone were also missing, along with a bottle of vodka and Kahlua. As the investigation continued, questions began to emerge, not just about what happened to Maura, but about the investigation itself. For example, the handwritten note. Julie explains on the Weird True Crime podcast that she was able to see the items obtained in the search warrant for the vehicle. She assumes that the police reached out to the person on the note. Julie decided to do some of her own investigating and called the number herself. But it was a disconnected landline. She does some more digging and finds the person who the phone number belonged to and gives them a call. But the person on the line says that was the first time they received a call about the case. The official documents also have some discrepancies. Cecil Smith reports that he was on the scene at 7:46 when he found the abandoned black sedan, but later he states he was there at 7:35. But this means he would have been there when Butch Atwood placed his call at 7:43. Butch Atwood lives 100 meters from the crash site. Why would he call for help if there was a police officer already there? A BOLO, or Be on the Lookout, was sent out on February 10th for the driver of the 1996 Saturn. The police collected 18 items. 7 had Maura's name, and 2 included her address. The plates on the vehicle were out-of-state plates, and the car was registered to Fred. If they truly ran those plates, they would have contacted Fred way sooner that they had found his vehicle. Fred was not contacted until Tuesday, February 10th in the afternoon. That would have been almost 24 hours after she went missing. When Fred called the Haverhill police, they said that if they haven't heard from her by the morning, they would start a search. The search didn't start until 2 days later. So much crucial time was lost in the beginning hours after she is missing. Netizens speculate that the family was being difficult by lawyering up, but in reality, the police didn't want the family to join in or do their own searches for Maura. There was a wall of tension whenever the family reached out to the police to follow up on the case. So much so that Fred had to hire 2 lawyers to go after the police for the case files under the Freedom of Information Act. With little physical evidence and no confirmed sightings, theories about Maura's disappearance quickly began to spread. Now, a disclaimer here. To this day, no theory has ever been proven, and Maura Murray's disappearance remains officially unsolved. So we're going to go through the theories. Theory 1. Maura was abducted by a serial killer. Some believe that a vehicle must have passed by offering Maura some help and forced her into the car and drove away without a trace. Over the years, there have been some suspects, but none have been charged. Theory 2. Maura planned her own disappearance. Some say that she might have left the country. There was a couple comments circulating that she was in Canada, but none of these comments were confirmed. And all the things she packed just are so random that it doesn't make sense for someone trying to disappear. A textbook, a monkey, and a diamond necklace. Theory 3. Maura got lost in the woods and passed away from harsh weather conditions. However, authorities did not discover footprints in the snow, and no body has ever been recovered. Over 20 years later, Maura's disappearance remains unsolved. And despite the countless theories and searches and investigations, the truth may still be out there somewhere, waiting to be uncovered. For her family, this was never just a mystery. It was Maura, 21-year-old young woman with goals, family, friendships, and an entire future ahead of her. If you have your own thoughts and theories about this case, feel free to share them respectfully in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep dives into the true crime and unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe to Crime Thread so you don't miss future episodes. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.